Alright, so I'm going to do this video a bit differently. I'm going to skip all the intros and all that bullshit and just do it a bit more sort of a one-take, casual sort of a video. You guys let me know if you rather it in the comments, but basically I want to go through my little Panhead here. So basically I've got most of the bottom end shit together here. I went and saw my buddy John Parker this morning and he hooked me up with some bearings and stuff for all my new pinion shafts and my sprocket shafts, and basically got me all the bearings I need to get these flywheels sort of floating in my cases. So what I want to do, for those who are in the know with this motor, these are Evo flywheels, so these are 4 1/4 stroke flywheels. So I need to put this sort of, mock this all up, get these flywheels together, get some rods in there, and then sort of mock this up in the cases and work out what pistons I'm going to run. Because I'm running a 4 1/4 stroke and not the, whatever it is, 3 64ths or whatever the fuck it is, because I'm running another 1/4 inch of stroke here, I'm going to have a bit more deck height. So my piston's going to come up a bit higher in my barrel. So basically what I need to do, I need to mock all this up, put all this together, put my flywheels in my cases, put my barrels on here, sort of work out what pistons I'm going to run. So the way I have sort of thought about this is an Evo sort of a crank. So it's 4 1/4 strokes. So it's the same as your 80 cube shovel. So with an 80 cube shovel, you got 4 1/4 stroke and whatever it is, 3.5 bore. So I'm hoping that I can get away with running a shovel 80 cube piston in this. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to still use a 1200 barrel, but I'm going to use a 1200 barrel that's sort of on its last legs. What I mean by that is one that's, whatever it is, 60 or 70 thou over. So it is 3.5 inch bore. Yes, the wall's going to be a bit thin, but this is a personal motor. I don't have to worry about handing this off to a customer and saying good luck. It's mine, so anything that happens to this thing, you know, I'm just going to tear the engine out, pull it apart, and do it again. The beauty of me being able to do this stuff, really. So what I am hoping is that I can put this thing together. I have some pan barrels that are on their last legs, so they are 60 or 70 thou over. I have some shovel pistons there. I'm hoping to sort of put that together and maybe I can get away with a little shim underneath my barrel or something to get myself into the right area without having too much compression and stuff like that. Because I do want to ride the wheels off this bike. I don't want to build something that's like 9.5 to 1 compression, sucks to start, can only put 98 in it, and you know, I have to be really careful I don't ride it when it's too hot or something stupid like that. I just want to get on this thing and go, not have to worry about any of that crap. So basically, like I said, what I got sitting around here, I have all the bearings for my races and everything. I had to hone these after I blasted in my case and did all that. So I have matched some bearings with my new shafts and everything into my cases now. So basically I just need to put these flywheels together. Now I have a mismatch hodgepodge load of shit here. Basically, once again, it's a personal motor. I'm going to use a heap of secondhand stuff to make this as cheap as possible. Obviously, if this is a customer motor, I'd just put new stuff in it and be done with it. But I've got a heap of Evo rods here. I have some new wrist pin bushes that I will put in these when I work out what rods I want to use. All these races are pretty nice in these rods, so some races might be bigger than others, some might be smaller. I have mismatched bearings as well. These are seconds bearings, so I'm going to just sort of go through here, work out which pin, bearings, and rods is the best combo, and then that's what I'm going to run on this thing. When I work that out, obviously I'll just press these new wrist pin bushes in. But basically, I'm going to go through these bearings. These are bearings that I've had sitting around for ages. So basically, I just want to go through these things. I'm going to measure them up. Firstly, I want to make sure I've got enough. So it's pretty useless if, you know, 1 or 2 are missing here or there. These are out of motors that I think Ollie might have given me a set, or I found a set somewhere, or I don't know. But I might be missing a couple out of this, and they might be mismatched sizes. So I'm going to go through, measure every single one, nice and painstaking, but I'm going to measure every one in 2 spots to make sure they're not, you know, oval, make sure they haven't worn in one spot, make sure they haven't been dragging, all that sort of shit. So you go through, measure all these, work out if I've got enough, and then I'm basically going to pick the good cages, the good bearings, pick the right sizes, and then I will put the pin in my flywheels here, and then we'll set it up with the rods and just sort of work out what likes to fit. And then I'm going to know what lives where. So I'm going to go through now. I'm going to measure up all these bearings. I've got my little butcher's paper down here just so I can write bearing sizes and put stuff in the right place. These might have been mismatched. They were in different bags, but this bag has more bearings than this bag, and I don't think that's enough bearings, so I don't really know what the fuck's going on here. So we'll go through now, measure this up, and then we will set our flywheels up and, you know, work out which rod, pin, and all that shit likes to work. So after measuring all that stuff, I worked out that our small side, right, so that is our fork side. So that is, you know, we got two and then one larger size. So both those have 17 rollers each, and so does our large sides. Now, I had two sets here. One set is missing one big roller and two small rollers. So that is a bit annoying, but at least I have a full set. Like I said, I measured them all. They're all the same sizes, and I picked the good aluminium races. So what I want to do next, I want to go through and test fit this into all these different rods that I've got. So I've got a nice Jim's crank pin here. So I'm going to go through, let's put this in our flywheels, right? So we'll start with our pinion side. Now, I actually don't have a key for my pinion side yet. I need to buy one, but it's not going to be the end of the world. I'll just put it together sort of in the right spot. Wait a fucking second. Oh no, we got two holes. Sorry, I thought my hole was in the wrong spot, but we're good. I've already blown air through this. So we'll put that there. Doesn't matter, we don't have a key. Like I said, I'm just going to tighten it up and it will stay in the right spot for us anyway. So that there. I'm just going to tighten this up a little bit. Like I said, this is only a dummy. I just want to dummy this up to make sure everything is right before I go too crazy and put all this together with, well, I have to balance it. So the reason I'm doing all this before I balance it is because I need to know the weights of the pistons and all that sort of stuff to balance these flywheels before I can completely assemble them. So that is why I'm sort of half doing this now. So I'll get my fucking bearings here. So it goes small race on the bottom, obviously. Oh, don't lose my rollers. Big race, small race. So that is obviously because we have a fork and a knife. So our knife is the larger one through the center, and then our fork is the two smaller ones, top and bottom. So I will go through and painstakingly insert all these in here. Now, you want to still do this dry. You don't want to do it with any liquid or grease or anything in there because it's going to mess up your feel. We are feel fitting this. You can measure anything. You can measure everything 130,000 times, measure it to the 10th of a thou. Nothing beats a feel fit. So we'll feel fit all this and then work out which rods we're going to go with. So I'll go through and painstakingly put all these rollers in here, and then we will try our rods. Alright, so I'll painstakingly put all these freaking rollers in here. If you drop them, it is an absolute fucking nightmare. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try the rods that I think belong to these bearings. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure these rods belong to these bearings. So let's have a look how they go. Remember, we are mocking this up, but let's do it the right way. So our fork always goes to the back side of our engine. So this can be a little bit annoying to put in. You got to sort of line this all up and back and forth like that. Now that is, see that? That is way too much. So that is no comprende. So let's try another set of rods. that inner rod seems a bit flogged out. So this is the beauty of having all these mismatched stuff. I can just try something else. Now this is wanting to pull the top off, which it usually does. Take that last bearing with it, which we don't want. All right, so they're a bit sloppy. Let's try this set. Now, if they're a bit tight, we can always get them honed, but sloppy's not real great. Oh, that's better. Still a bit in there, but there is always going to be a little bit on your knife just because, you know, you don't have such a wide reach like your fork does. So that's better. Let's not call that perfect, but it's definitely better. So let's try our last set. Sometimes if you hold the race, it helps too. So you don't want to pull that top fucking bearing out. Come here, you prick. All right, so that was better. Let's have a look at this set. Races look pretty good. Hopefully this is not looser. Oh, it's going on pretty easy. So that is pretty darn loose. This middle one is pretty flogged out, eh? I might... Actually, no, I don't have the fucking... What am I going to do here? I almost need bigger rollers. That last pair, we would probably get away with. So, oh, see? You're not careful with it, you will lose some. So, just for mock-up purposes, I might have a think about that. And just for mock-up, let's run the one that's pretty close. So this one was the closest. So just for mock-up, let's run this. Maybe I'll look for a rod set or... Look, you'd get away with that. That's really not that bad. So, like I said, it is my motor. So if something did go wrong, obviously I'm the guy to fix it. So once you've got oil and stuff in that, it's probably not too bad. Right, we're going to leave that for now. And we will get back to it later. But a lot of you have probably noticed that I have fucked this up. I need to put my pinion shaft in and my sprocket shaft before I can put this together. So give me a sec. I'm gonna put my key in there like that. I'm gonna dodgy this up. I should have done this first. All right, come on, get in there. Is this pinion this side? Yeah, of course it is. Get in there, you fuck. All right. Pinion. Put that back in there. Now my pinion has this weird little washer on it. If you guys don't know about it, it means you haven't watched this episode before this one. Maybe you freaking should. Now I really should have put this on earlier because I can't get a socket in there, but I really want to. So I'm going to take this back off. Hopefully I can fit a socket when this is off. Come on, you prick. Yes, I can. So I'm going to go ahead, tighten that. Then we'll put the sprocket side in our other flywheel. And then I'm going to tighten this up. And then I'm going to true it, just not crazy accurate, just a little bit, just so it spins nicely in the cases and we can turn it over and do all that sort of stuff. Alright, so let's put our fucking rods back on after that absolute juggling act. Just do it the right way around. Don't do what I do. Alright, I'm missing one thing yet. Use this to, this sort of just aligns the flywheels a little bit. So you're pretty close before you go through truing it up. There's plenty there. All right, so I'm just going to put a bit on that. Like I said, I'm going to true this a little bit, I think. All right, let's put this in a truing stand and have a look at it. All right, so Ollie's trusty little truing stand here. He lent it to me to do Pretty's engine that you would have just seen. So now I'm just going to use it quickly to do my bottom end. So basically the way this works, we're just going to put 2 dial gauges on each of the shafts, and hopefully they are running pretty close to true. I would be happy within a few thousandths. Like I said, this is just for mock-up, so it doesn't have to be insanely accurate or anything, but these things are sometimes so annoying to get right. Give me a sec to set up these freaking dial gauges. All right, so I have these flywheels in here now, and you can see they're not that close really, but I'm not going to go through and show you a whole series on well, that's pretty close. Fuck. I'm not going to go through and show you a whole series on truing these up because I have already done one of those. So if you guys want to know a bit more about truing this up, you'll have to go back and watch the truing video. But basically, if I'm going clockwise, it's getting bigger. And it looks like they're both bigger in the same spot. So opposite our pin here, they are both bigger. So just put a little mark here. It's big. Yep. So they're both big here, which means which direction do I need to go? They're both big. Means I need to clamp this. Yep. So I need to clamp this in and make this a bit smaller here. So I'm going to go ahead and get these pretty close. And then once they're pretty close, we're going to go ahead and start putting them in the cases over here. Right, so I got this crank within a couple of thou. Like I said, this is only a mock-up, so I don't need to get this thing perfect. I want it pretty nice once it's all done and dusted, going in the cases, but for now, close enough is good enough. So what I want to do here, which is going to be a little bit tricky because I've just remembered that my clips for my case here, so these clips go inside the race here, and this is what holds the bearings in. Both mine are broken. They are a fucking prick to get out. So I broke one getting it out, and the other one, look, I could probably get away with it, but if I'm buying one, I might as well buy both and put 2 new ones in it. So I'm going to try and put these flywheels in these cases with no circlips in them. So might be a little bit annoying, but I'll see how I go. The other thing we want to do when we bolt this thing together and put these flywheels in, we want to measure our lash. Because this is 2 flat rollers both sides, we've got these thrust washers. Now they ride on the inside of our case races here. So the thing basically just bounces back and forth, but there is fuck all in that. I think there's like 5 thou or something you're meant to have lash in these. So it's really not much, and when they bounce back and forth, it's not enough to, get up any sort of bounce and actually hurt something. So I need to check these as well when I put it together. So because I machined all this and made it brand new, I really don't know what it's going to be like. So you are along for the ride with me. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put these bearings on. Like I said, I went through and measured these up today with my buddy John, and we worked all this crap out. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on and then try and slide these in the freaking case. pretty sure that's the way it goes. Oh no, that's it. I'm gonna say I'm gonna have to check my book again. I'm gonna have to check my book. Righto, so I did the right thing and went back to my book. Made sure I got this shit in the right spot. So one thing you really got to make sure that this stuff's around the right way and you got your shit in the right order. So like I said, I would usually do this differently, but because I don't have the shit for this, I'm gonna have, when I say shit, I don't have the snap rings to make this happen. This is how I'm gonna do it. Let's put this, I think this guy goes on there as well. Come on. Oh shit, feel that. Oh god. What the fuck? Someone's getting broken. Oh, there goes my fucking bearings too. Fuck you. Looks like my washers are too tight. I'm gonna make my washers heaps looser. Give me a sec. Let me fucking fix this. God damn it. Good thing about it being too wide, I can always machine it smaller if I have to. Looks like it's fucking too wide. Let me fucking fix this. So I got this thing in here. I have all my bolts tightened up. Well, I've got majority of them. I don't know why I didn't put this one in, but anyway, I have majority of. Oh, fuck, I hate these things. I have most of them in there, so this thing turns over freaking Mickey Mouse. It is fucking real nice, actually. Anyway, this is just mock-up, but basically what I want to do to start with, I want to check my end play, one of the things that I need to do. So all you do is just chuck your fucking screwdriver in there. My end play is pretty good. That's not bad for something that, you know, I machined these flywheels and I've just measured pretty willy-nilly. So what we're going to do to actually measure this and work out how much I need to add to our washers, I'm just going to bolt this plate here. This is pretty crude, but just a steel plate to my timing cover flange here. Just like that. Get my friggin' dial gauge so I can mount it on that bit of steel. And now wrestle the thing so I can fucking get it to do what I want. And then we're going to put this... Oh. You would have thought in 2025 there would have been a better fucking way to do this, but here we are, still struggling with these stupid fucking dial gauges. Always hated these things. Alright, so basically what we do, we just jam it on there like that. I don't know if, can you guys see? Sorta. Here, let me get you a bit closer. Oh, yep, glare on the thing, that's perfect. There it is. So basically what we're going to do, we're just going to watch our gauge here, stick our screwdriver in here between the cases, right, and push back and forth, and we're watching that move. So where it stops there, I'm going to put that on 0. So 0, and then push back the other way. So what have I got there? So I have 0.04 of a millimeter. Now, I'm going to write that down. I'm pretty sure that's like 20 thou. 0.0 of a mil, 0.04. No, we got 0.4. Not 0.04, 0.4. So 0.4 of a millimeter. So that is less than 20 thou. So half a millimeter is 20 thou. So I've only got to go a little bit more. In the book, it says 5 thou to 15 thou. So I'm pretty good. I'm pretty on the money here. I'm happy with that. So now we need to get the barrels on there and start having a look at some piston and barrel combos. I will be using a 1200 barrel, I reckon. All right, so it is the next day here, and what I was saying is this has got 0.4 of a mil of travel. Obviously, I'm continuously converting this stuff because I'm over here in Australia, we run metric, and obviously, whoever is over there in the States, obviously you run metric. So in the books that I get, it does give you both measurements. Sometimes imperial is easier, sometimes metric is easier. You will find though, your dial gauges, your metric dial gauges are actually more accurate than your imperial ones. You've got less movement. So one increment on my millimeter is actually 0.4 of a thou. So when you run an imperial dial indicator, usually you only have 1 thou increments unless you buy a more expensive half thou increment. Little trick, just buy a metric dial indicator and then one of the little increments is actually 0.4 of a thou, so 4/10. So they are much more accurate. That's why I like to use a metric dial indicator. So like I said, this is 0.4 of a mil, so that's actually 16 thou. So I had a look in my book and it says shoot between 5 thou and 15 thou. So I'm pretty impressed on my machining. I literally just copied some measurements off the other original flywheels and I ended up almost fucking bang on. So I'm still gonna take some off that. I reckon I'll still take like 10 thou, like 5 thou aside. I'll make it a bit bigger just because once I tighten up that crank bit a bit more, you know, the flywheels might move together a bit and blah, blah, blah. I'd rather it on the small side and it can bang around and get bigger if it wants than starting on the large size and then it bangs around and gets bigger. So I'm gonna put 5 thou aside in this, make it a little bit bigger so it doesn't knock around as much. But that is pretty well one thing I wanted to measure. The next thing I want to measure is obviously I want to put some barrels on this thing. I want to put some pistons in it. I want to work out, obviously this thing is a stroker now, so I've got to make sure I've got the right deck height and the piston doesn't hit the flywheels at the bottom because these rods go super close to the flywheel now. So just got to make sure that my pistons don't hit that. So I'm going to go through, find some barrels. I think I have some 3.5 inch 1200 barrels, so they're like 6 to 70 thou over. So I can put some 80 cube pistons in that and I can see what my deck height is. I might even put a head on with some small valve springs and just make sure I don't have any valve interference or anything like that. So let me get it set up for that. Alrighty, so I have so to start with, I thought these barrels were a bit smaller than what they are, but my fucking 3.5 inch piston, this is a standard shovel 80 cube piston. It flies through here. So I'm not sure if I can go 10 over on these to go the next size piston. They are pretty bored out, but this is going to be perfect for my mocking up because the piston sort of flies through there. So I have the piston on the rear here. First thing I want to check is that it doesn't hit the flywheels when we come through the bottom like that. So that's good. So let's chuck this barrel on. I'm just starting with the rear barrel. If it's anywhere close, I will, I'll chuck the rear one on too, but, oh, that doesn't protrude too much there. That's there's going to be a little bit of compression there, but that's all right. So I want to get this as close as possible. So I'm going to find myself a base gasket. Fuck, this thing turns over nicely. I'm going to find a base gasket and put it under this. I put some studs in my case here. So I just put some blue Loctite on those because I gave all the threads a buff and it, screws in super nice when you actually clean the threads and put the stuff together. So I'm going to find a base gasket, put a base gasket on this, and then sit this cylinder on here, tighten up some base gasket nuts like this, put a bit of pressure on it, and then I might measure it and sort of put a head on it, have a look, see what's sort of happening here. So give me a sec, I'll get some shit together. All right, so I found some old head gaskets out of a kit. Fun fact, later model stuff like 62 pan to 65 is outside oiler. So your base gaskets don't have an oiling hole. So you fucking almost never use these because they're pretty rare engines. So always use these for little mock-ups like this. So That gasket actually gives, you know, how thick is that gasket? Just for argument's sake, if we didn't run that gasket, oh, if I don't fucking break it trying to get it off. So it's pretty important to run all your gaskets and head gaskets when you work this stuff out because, you know, there's 30 thou. So that is a country mile when you're talking about clearances and stuff. So that could be the difference between it hitting and not hitting. So let's put this barrel on. Like I said, that piston absolutely flies through there. So I don't think I'm going to be using these barrels. I have a 20 thou overset of shovel barrels there, but they have the pan piston. Sorry, not shovel. I have a 20 thou overset of pan barrels there, but I was going to use this pan piston. So what the fuck? I've got the wrong barrel on here. Why didn't you guys tell me that this is the fucking front barrel? Not that it's really going to matter, but I might as well run the right shit in the right spot. Oh, this has got a gasket on it. Frick's sake. Ow, fuck yeah. Alright, so let's start with the correct barrel this time. Bloody idiot. So there it is. Piston goes up and down. You know what? It really doesn't protrude out the top too much. I might just be able to just get away with these 80 cube pistons. The only thing that I'm going to have to check out is my compression ratio. Like I was saying earlier, because I want to do some riding on this thing, I don't want to fucking have a huge compression ratio. I don't want to be running, 9.5, 10 to 1. Ideally, I want to hit that sort of 8.5 to 1, where it's got compression, but not enough compression to be annoying, where, you got to worry about how hot it is and what fuel you put in it and all that sort of shit. So I'd rather just have this thing sort of get on and go and not have to worry about that sort of crap, because it does get hot in Australia. So freaking 80 cube piston seems to do the job. Doesn't protrude that much out the top here. So I think I'm going to have to go and get my head now, make sure all that has clearance, and then if it has clearance, I'm going to check how much compression ratio we're working with, and I'm going to do that with some fluid. I have done it before on this channel, but being my motor, I would like to know what I'm working with. But it's a pity these barrels are so far over, because I don't have another set, and I wonder if I could be a dodgy person and go maybe a 10 thou over again. So 10 thou over 80s. I think the barrels are probably starting to get a bit small, but it saved me a lot of money. So anyway, something to think about. Let me get a head gasket and then one of my heads and a couple of bolts, and we'll get this head on and see what happens. Alrighty, I have a head gasket. I'm going to be using metal head gaskets on this thing, so that is pretty well correct mock up there. So I'm just going to put 2 bolts in this thing. I'm not going to get carried away and put 100 in there. 2 will do. And then tighten it down. Basically, I just want to see if the piston hits it. So if the piston doesn't hit it, well then we're on the right track. I'm just going to have to, doesn't hit it, I'm just going to have to measure the compression ratio and make sure it's freaking not too crazy. As long as that compression ratio is not too crazy, I'm just going to have to work out what to do for barrels. If I can, I really don't know. You hear a few horror stories from like my buddy John Parker. He's fucking done it all when it comes to these things. talks about your barrel being too thin. So when you bore these things out too much, this bit right here above your flange gets super thin. And then you start having your barrel separating right there, which is obviously not a good thing. But once again, you obviously wouldn't sell it to a customer like that, but this being mine, I can sort of push the boundaries a bit more and see what's gonna fucking happen. So, I don't know. Obviously there's no compression down here, but he was saying that if you go through maybe some water or some rain or something like that, this being hot and then it has a drastic pressure change, a drastic temperature change, it can cause it to crack there. So, I'm a little unsure if I should be trying to push that boundary, because obviously I want to ride the hell out of this thing and I don't want to be stuck somewhere because I've freaking put some barrels on here that are too thin looking for capacity and then, you know, I've blown them up. But you always learn the most from your failures, so maybe I should just go for it and see what happens. But these are my Panheads that I've had sitting around for ages now. So obviously they've been all blasted. Got all brand new valves and guides and all that shit in them. I've just been waiting around till I get this bottom end sorted. Obviously I've gone through and made my life difficult doing this stroker and now trying to put 80 cube pistons in it, but I've got to blow all my mates' doors off. They all reckon their bikes are the fastest, so fingers crossed, this being a nice stroker now and being a large capacity, I should be right. So that's tight. Now I suppose we just turn this over. Oh, look at that. Turns over mint. We have no piston to head clash at all. So our 80Q pistons were the best idea yet. So now all I really want to do, I want to check the compression ratio. So I've shown you this before, how I do this, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. So basically the idea of this is we're going to fill, when this piston's at complete top dead center, so the piston's as high as it can possibly go in our barrel here, I'm going to measure that, and then I'm going to take this barrel off, grease it up, put it all together and mimic that, and then put water in our spark plug hole. So then I fill up the complete capacity at top dead center, and that gives us our CCs, and then we divide that by our complete swept volume, which we know is 4 1/4, times the size, and then we add that unswept volume in there. And that's how we work out our compression ratio. So that was just a quick rundown, but I'll show you in greater detail how we will do that. But that is freaking awesome. So I've just been doing a bit of brainstorming and measuring here, and I remembered that I had some other barrels that I got off my good buddy Piercy. Now these are 60 over, I think. I'm not 100%, I'm pretty sure they're 60 over, but when I measure these are like, what's that? 2 thou under 1.5 inches. So, sorry, 2 thou under 3.5 inches. So that is the correct size. So, like these ones, the ones I've got, shit, they are 10 thou over 3.5. So these pistons are cock and a sock in there, but the same 80-inch pistons are fit in there really quite nice. Fuck, it's windy today. But they fit in there quite nicely. Fuck, there's leaves coming out of fucking somewhere. Anyway, they fit in there quite nicely. Now, I want to check my 1200 clearance as well. So this is a 1200 piston, right? Have a look how long the skirt is. So I just line up these piston, the gudgeon pins the same. So you can see, obviously the skirt's bigger, and also the dome is higher. So The skirt being longer is not the end of the world. I can shorten that. That's easy. You just shorten it like this to go in between the flywheels. I'll show you that. But the dome is higher. If you have a look at this dome is much lower than that. Now, that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. So I'm going to put this piston on and measure this again and make sure this doesn't hit the head. Now, if this piston doesn't hit the head when we line it up, I want to check the compression on this too. This having a lower dome like this will mean less compression, but this having a higher dome will mean more compression. So if this piston doesn't hit the head, I'm going to put it on with these other barrels that I've got. So these are a 20 over 1200 barrel. So I'm going to put them in. See that? Like 20 over. I'm going to put that piston in that barrel and put it on this motor and see if that piston will hit the head. If it doesn't hit the head, I'll measure the compression on both. Like I'm saying, because this has got a smaller dome, this will be less compression than this one. If this one ends up being like fucking 7.5 to 1 and this ends up being like 8.5, I'll cut this skirt down and use this one, but I'm really not sure. So this is all mock-up. We are just trying different things to see what works. But I could get away with this piston in this barrel, I think. What was this again? So we want 2 to 3 thou interference, right? The book says 1, but fuck that. That is not enough, especially in hot Australia. So what have I got there? I have 1 to 3 thou under inch, 3.5 inches. And what did I say this was? This might be fucking size for size here. I got 1 thou under. So what's that? That's 2 thou. That's the clearance we want. So this piston would fucking go straight in there. I can fucking live with that. Let's measure this again to be sure, but if there's 2 thou in there, I'd live with that. There is. Over 2 thou. So I would live with these pistons being in there. So I've got 2 options here. So let's go through. I'm going to mock up my 20 thou over 1200, and then if that works, we will compression test both the 80, so our 80-inch piston and our 20 over 1200. So let's have a look. All right, so I just have this head sitting on here. You can see the difference. Have a look how much this piston comes above, our deck height here. It comes so far above deck height. And that is because, like I said, see the dome is so much taller on this. So the other thing, if I go all the way to the bottom, I don't want to do this too hard because it gets stuck. The piston hits the flywheel. So that's what I was saying before. The skirt is too long and it's hitting the flywheel. So that's 2 things that our 80-inch piston does better. So the other thing is when we put this on, I'm just sitting this head on here, right? And you can see it knocks. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Just there it hits. So I haven't even got the bolts done up here. So this piston, the dome is too tall for it. So I think I'm just going to go with my 80-inch pistons. I think because that's only a little bit different, this must be a lot of compression already. So I'm going to go with my 80-inch pistons. That's what we're going to run. I'm going to run those different barrels I got off my good buddy Piercy. I actually need to pay you for them, Piercy. I haven't done it yet. I haven't forgotten. It's just on loan at the moment. So I'm going to use 80-inch pistons and I'm going to use those 60 over barrels, I think, because I've got the 2 thou clearance that I need. So let's fucking go with that. And then we'll check this compression ratio. But I just want to show you, I'm not sure if you can see it, but see this piston, how long the skirt is, goes all the way in here. And then right there, that's it hitting the flywheel. So it's pretty close to clearing, so it probably wouldn't need much massaging to get there. But it doesn't reach the top. There's no point fixing it to reach the bottom. So go with our 80-inch pistons. And I'm going to measure, I need to put that 80-inch piston back on. I'll measure my deck height, and then we'll grease it up and work out our compression. I'll show you what I mean by that. Thought I was on a roll there, but then something's happened. So I figured might as well mock it up with the barrel that I'm going to use, and I put it all together, and it looks like this piston comes way higher than what the other one did. So I thought, I'll just sit this on here, and whichever way it goes. One of these. I'll just sit this on here and sit the head on and just see what it does, and it absolutely destroys it. Look at that. And I was like, why the hell does it clear with the other barrel but not this barrel? So I had the other barrel here and I measured it, and for some reason this barrel measures, I don't know if it's an EL barrel or it's been shortened for more compression, but this barrel measures 5.2 inches long, flat to flat, and this one is 5.35. It's 150 thou taller. So that's why it's hitting. It's 150 thou taller, and I freaking don't know why. I think EL stuff's even shorter than that again. So I don't know, maybe someone's just machined this to get a bit more compression out of it. But that makes my life super annoying because these pistons fit this, but but these barrels are too short for some reason. Like, I can put a spacer under the base of this and lift it up that 150 thou. Just means I've got to run 2 base gaskets, which is not the end of the world. But what did we say? The base gaskets were 30 thou each, right? So if I ran 2, that's 60 thou. What am I aiming for? I'm aiming for 150 thou. I think I had some shims. Joel cut some for me. I don't know where I put them, but 150 thou shim is probably not going to... No, 120 thou because I got 30 thou. 120 thou shim is probably not going to be the end of the world, but I'd like it to just bolt on. Why is it doing this to me? So that almost looks like it's got a crack in it too, just through there. So I think these barrels, is it a crack or a... I don't fucking know. Doesn't look healthy. I'm really not sure what to do anymore. Which barrels to use? That's sort of put a fucking spanner in the works. Because those pistons, the dome is too tall on these pistons, and I can't just machine the dome off because there's not a heap of meat there. The casting's quite good. So I need to use these pistons, but fuck, I might have to just shim these. It's the only fucking... Those pistons don't fit. Sure, I could get these barrels bored out to this size, but then it's a waste of the pistons and barrels that I've got, making them so far oversized. So might see if some buddies have some barrels, and if not, I'm gonna have to use these, and I'll just put a shim underneath it, which is fucking annoying. But if I put the shim underneath it, I can always I don't want to machine the head, do I? No, they're pretty close to the valves. I'd rather not fuck with that. I don't exactly know where it hits, but where does this hit? Looks like it hits on the edge there. It's gonna give a witness if I fucking do this. Give me a witness mark. Looks like it's hitting in here. Oh, that's it there. I can see it's just above the valve seat. So it is that corner that hits. If I knocked that off, I'd probably get rid of it. But once again, I could take that corner off. Fuck, should I machine these pistons to make it fit? That's going to be a heap of compression though. That's the only problem. If I'm machining the piston to fit in the head here, oh yeah, you can see it by doing that. You can see where it's hitting. Hitting right on that edge. But then, even if I took that edge off, not much to go before the rest of it hits as well. So, it would be nice if these fucking barrels were longer. It looks like the bottom's been machined off. The fucking flanges are not as thick as what these are. So, I dare say the barrel's been machined to up the compression, and now I'm running into an annoying issue. Looks like I might have to run a freaking stroker plate under that, just so I don't ruin 2 sets of fucking barrels trying to do this. Yeah, it's hitting fucking right there. I can't take it out of the head because the valve seats are right there. I'd have to take it out of the piston. But even then, I don't think I'm going to get 150 thou out of it. I think I'm going to get a little bit. Not going to get that much. Yes, I think I will be... Oh, he's fucked that up. I think I will be running some stroker plates. Alright, so I've sort of been stewing on this thing overnight, sort of slept on it, and was talking to my buddy John about it today. And weird that this barrel is like 150 thou smaller than our other barrel here. I would say that someone's probably shortened the barrel to up the compression. So by pulling the barrel down and pulling the head closer to your piston, you are upping the compression and, you know, making it faster and all that stuff. But in doing that, obviously, because I have a stroker setting here, it sort of kills it for me. It might be good for someone else, but it's not good for my application. So the other thing I was thinking if they're EL barrels, but I think EL barrels are like a 1/4 inch smaller. I'm not 100%. I have an EL over there I'm about to rebuild, so I'll have to give those a measure and see what they are. Maybe I can use these barrels over there on the EL when it comes to building that thing. But I put a post on my Instagram looking for new barrels, so just to see if any of my buddies had some. And a buddy of mine, Dan, down in Melbourne, I think he is, he has a set of 60 thou over barrels. So 60 thou over is just under 3.5 inch. So 60 thou over 1200 is just under 3.5 inch. So these pistons I want to run, these 80 inch shovel pistons, they are 3.5 inches or just under. So I'll be able to get those barrels and bore them out to suit this, and then our pistons will work in there. I'm just double checking with him at the moment to make sure the barrels are the same height as these. So I don't think I want to go 10 thou over 80 cube in these 1200 barrels. I think this will be super weak through here. Talking to my buddy John, he's done it before in his knuckle back in the day. He said if you fucking get, when this thing's hot, if you go through a river crossing or maybe it rains or something, the temperature difference will smash straight through the case here and crack it all the way through. And obviously your head is not connected to your cases and stuff anymore, so it makes an absolute fucking mess. So I really don't want to go down that path because, like I said, I want to ride the wheels off this thing. I don't want to be riding somewhere and worried about my barrels breaking in half. So hopefully my buddy down in Melbourne has those barrels for me and I will get them and just use them. But for the meantime, I think what I'll do, I know that these are the pistons I want to run, so I will run these pistons. So I'm going to get some rings for these pistons. These are second-hand pistons. Once again, personal motor. I'm going to reuse shit because I don't have a lot of money. I'm a tight ass. I can do the work. Why not cut some corners, see what I can get away with. So I'm going to reuse these second-hand pistons here. I'm just going to get some new rings for it. And what I might do, instead of doing checking the compression now, because I don't really care about it that much. So what I might do, I think I might tear this apart again and get these rings, and then I'll balance the bottom end. If I balance the bottom end and do all that, I can final assemble the bottom end and the crank and all that stuff, and then just sort of play around with my barrels at the end. So like I was saying, I could just use these barrels and then just put a spacer underneath. Yes, I could. I'm just being picky. I don't want to do that. I don't want to put 2 base gaskets in it. 2 reasons for that. Obviously, your base gaskets are going to compress, and then if you've got 2 in it, it's going to compress twice as much. Not too much of an issue, but if I don't have much space up here, I will get some, connection somewhere. But the other reason is 1 base gasket leaks at the best of times. Does that mean that 2 base gaskets will leak twice as much? Who fucking knows? I'd rather not go that direction, but if it happens, it happens. So I'm going to get those barrels off my buddy, like I said, and I'm going to use them. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go through, tear this thing back apart. I know all this works. I know what thrust washers I need to put in the bottom end here, so that's all sweet. I know that all this goes together nicely now, so I can basically assemble the flywheels. I can, balance it all, do all that stuff. I can completely put these cases together for the last time. I can completely finalize all that, glue them together. I can paint the inside, make them all look nice. I can do all that shit, and then once I get the barrels, I can hone and do all that stuff and do this top end stuff later. Like, once that's done, I'm so much further forward than, fucking around waiting for new barrels and all that. And fucking around with compression ratios, I don't really care about. So if I put the other barrels on and end up having like a ridiculous compression ratio, which I don't think I will, because if you have a look, it's quite a flat dome piston. And once you put it in here, into the head, you've actually got quite a lot of dish in there. So there's quite a lot of volume in there to compress in. So when you go to like your Evos and stuff that have a flat top piston, they have like half the head filled in, like along here is all filled in, and that's to up the compression. So I'm hoping that even though this piston's going to be way up in there, I'm still sort of aiming for that 8.5 to 1 compression. So like I said, if I get those barrels and the compression's too high, yes, I can just put a spacer in here and in the base gasket, put 2 base gaskets, and then it doesn't affect any of my balance or anything like that, because I'm literally just moving the barrel up a bit. It doesn't really fucking matter. So that is where I'm at. That is going to be the end of this video until I get my rings, and then the next video on my pan we will be balancing it. I reckon I'm going to balance it, true up the flywheels, get all that done, and then I'll paint these cases, I reckon, paint the insides, just because we've got that big weld repair in there as well. I'd hate for that to leak oil through a pore or something silly like that. So I'll paint that with some Gliptal on the inside, and then I'll assemble these cases, I reckon. Once I assemble the cases, I can put an oil pump on, I can put all my breather stuff in, I can probably put most of my chest together, and then I can just fuck around with my barrels and heads and stuff later. I can basically have a whole bottom end of this engine completely done, and then just wait for my barrels and piston combo. I already know what pistons I'm running, like I said, so there's nothing stopping me from balancing it. So that is pretty well it for this episode. So this is just a quick one, like I said, a bit different episode. If this is sort of the more episode, if this episode is sort of more what you're interested in watching, just let me know in the comments below. As always, a like, comment, and subscribe helps my videos gain a bit more traction, and I can do more of these things. I can set aside more time and do more videos instead of trying to make money and get by. Everything is so fucking expensive these days. Pick the worst time to try and go out and work on my own, but it is what it is, and I'm just going to make it work. So, like I said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.